Hi everyone, my name is Faiza, and join me as we talk about building wealth with Amoye Henry. Hi.
Hi, Faiza, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. So to get us started, could you tell our audience about who you are?
Okay, thank you. My name is Amoye Henry. I'm an investment professional, a venture partner, and a board member. I'm also the co-founder of Pitch Better Canada, which is a market research firm and capacity building company that supports women entrepreneurs in scaling up their businesses.
Amazing. How did you get into the space?
Very good question. I started initially by, experiencing as a founder. I was on the sort of founder side, experiencing the stereotypical lack of interest in investing in my companies and my startups, not necessarily seeing a lot of women that looked like me in sort of the investment space and the investment industry overall, lack of exposure to capital markets and accessing like true wealth, and ultimately growing up in an environment or growing up in a community that didn't necessarily have the tools and sort of that emphasis on financial literacy and financial education. So it's propelled me and kind of built in me this desire to understand the frameworks, participate in them, and then shift them. And so that's sort of the work that has led me on this journey from starting my own company at age 13 as a marketing coordinator, what have you, and I used to do designs for local businesses, to evolving and becoming the founder of a marketing modeling agency, in a sense that was focused on diverse models, pivoted then into running and building a festival prioritizing Black women called Afro Chic. The festival then grew incredibly, and we were able to build relationships with large brands, corporate sponsors, and relationships in the kind of entertainment and business spaces. And that allowed me to see, wow, okay, relationships are incredibly important in any industry. And that got my mind around this idea around sponsorships and raising capital and raising funding. So from there I said, I want to enhance my expertise a bit. I want to understand the science and really the systems about money, around money, and I invested in doing an MBA. I went ahead and got into Ivy Business School, and I was able to do my MBA over the pandemic, actually. But my focus was really on international investment strategy, and that led me into just a whirlwind experience where I was able to travel pretty much all over the world. I've been to at least now 32 countries. Wow. And I've through that MBA process, I've been able to meet startups, meet investment providers, so people, for anyone from an investor to a loan provider. The spectrum is large, really, and in my capacity as well, I became a portfolio manager for an upcoming fund that was based in the UK. The fund was investing, writing small checks to startups in West Africa, and I was able to be a part of that process, conduct due diligence, understand what startups needed to scale, as far as support from the investment community, the investors around them that were contributing to their companies and taking a place on their cap tables, but also the community at large, because a number of these startups really had an impact investment focus. So they weren't just creating these businesses to become rich, they're actually creating these businesses to solve problems.
It's
Mission driven and solve challenges, right? So that was, core to my work and a huge passion of mine.
So it sounds like you've been on quite the journey and really maneuvering your path, and you really forged it forward, and it's just really inspiring hearing that. So you talked a little bit about frameworks earlier. So as an investor and a venture partner, what are some of the frameworks you tend to encourage your startups that you work with to work with, essentially?
Yeah, good question. investment preparedness, investment readiness is key for any founder that's looking to scale their business using investment capital. And we also have to understand too that not all of our businesses are venture grade. Not all of us are building businesses to scale quickly, dramatically, and largely. And so we have to always be mindful of, what type of business am I set to build, right? And so as an investor, I really look at sort of the structure of the founder, the structure of the founder's business. I look at their team. I look at sort of their market traction. So what traction is happening in the market? Do they have, a large presence online? Do they have customers that are actually paying? Do they have sort of revenue actually coming in? I'd look at things like their IP, so their legal framework and the systems that kind of enable them to operate a structured governance system for their company. Do they have advisors? Do they have people that have experience in the field supporting them and guiding them along the way? Have they ever raised funding from a previous business before, right? Because a second time, third time founder, we might approach them differently than a first time founder. You'd also look at things like their investors pitch deck, which a pitch deck is absolutely key to have. And it's a really good way to tell the story of your company and talk to investors in a very high level way about what your solution is. And then there's, different nuances and things as it gets specific, but I would look at those, key things around investment preparedness and how to really equip yourself for success when approaching an investor.
No, thank you for that overview, that insight there. So I guess with with everything that you've shared and your insights and your experiences and expertise especially, what is one key piece of advice you'd lend to an aspiring founder that's trying to get started?
Wow. I would say I love this industry so much. I've dedicated my life for the past few years into it. I know that it has been a challenge for women that look like us to find space, hold space, and really shift the narrative. And I can't imagine, if it's hard as investors, I can't imagine also how hard it is, or I can imagine how hard it is as founders. But I would say for founders, really thinking about investment and raising capital to scale their businesses. I've heard this, a great woman once said this, but I reiterate and I think about it all the time. Investment is incredible, but you are going into bed, per se, with somebody, with an institution, usually for 5, 10 years, right? And so you really need to have a solid foundation, a solid relationship, and a solid understanding of your value and what you bring to the table. But more than that, the best money, the sweetest money you will ever make is money from your customers. Money that's actually coming in through services, through the product, right? Getting money from an investor is great, but that money is almost borrowed. That's money on borrowed time because they're expecting a return. And so it's always good to think about, okay, I need to raise capital to scale, but do I have the services and solutions that can really attract the customers to provide that return on investment? And so, I would just reiterate, the sweetest money you'll ever make is money from your customers, said by an incredible woman, Maya the investor.
No, thank you for that. That was really well articulated. And just, if you didn't take notes, start taking notes. But thank you so much for the conversation today, Amoye. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you. Thank you so much, BFN community. And thank you for all the work that you're doing to highlight and platform Black women investors and entrepreneurs.